All right, guys, we're live. Joe Mazzulla speaking right now. We wanted to get to the press
We didn't
conference
get the
right
intro
away.
in.
I know, we didn't get it in.
Regardless of the result at the other end, but I thought that got the best of us a little bit, and they made theirs.
We don't see that from this team much anymore. We've seen it in the past, but we don't see it much anymore. Is this just something that, hey, just one of those nights, or what leads to what's become a rare loss in composure?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just one of those nights. Again, I think when you shoot 25%, but you're fighting for great looks, and you have a team that shoots 37%, it's just going to wear on you a little bit. So, like I said, I thought our attention to detail was good in the first half. I thought the second half it waned a little bit, and good thing is we got the same team coming up, so we just find the 15 to 20 possessions that we got to be better at. I just can't be on the court, so the ref had to do his job. I was on the court, and that's it.
And what were you guys frustrated with on the call? Like, what happened on that play that you guys were frustrated with?
I was on the court, so I just can't be on the court.
Joe, you talked about the shot making, and you talked about the last time you played Chicago, how these guys are a much better three-point shooting team this year. They kept pace with you guys in attempts. What did you see from them that allowed them to do that, and on your end too, like that allowed them to get up that many threes?
Yeah, I mean, I think again some of those came off offensive rebounds. I'd say the ones that we have to take away are the ones that came off offensive rebounds and the ones that came late in the clock. Whether it's an inch-out read or we have a good individual defense and they make a one more pass. So. I don't know the total transition numbers. It felt like we did a better job guarding them in the transition for somewhat of the game, but it's just there's 10 to 12 that you got to fight to make sure you take away.
Just to be clear, you got the technical not for anything you said, but because you stepped onto the court there.
Yeah, I just stepped on the court.
And after the game, looked like a couple of assistants and security guard needed to kind of hold you back. What message were you trying to deliver there?
I just hadn't seen them in a while, so just a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I wasn't sure I was going to see them before the holiday. And, I just can't let a moment go by to where you wish someone, just the best, to them and theirs and their families.
That moment, obviously, from the sound of it, you didn't agree with the technical there, but you had cut it to three, and then all of a sudden you get a tech, and then Jalen gets a tech, and then Tatum gets a tech soon after that. Is there something to learn there about how quickly a game can go sideways, and what to do in that moment?
Gary
when
Washburn
things are
level
going
question
against
here.
you?
Yeah, I mean, you're always learning things. So at the end of the day, we just got to be better. Like I said, I can't go on the court. Like you said, cut it to three. It's a game where some things aren't going our way. Just got to be better.
Joe, what have you done over the last 10 minutes to kind of calm down? Because obviously you were pretty heated out there at the end of the game.
Nice.
I mean, I was never really worked up to the level of which. I was fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you do? How do you counter nights when the shots aren't going down?
I don't know. We have 11 offensive rebounds, but I don't know what our offensive rebound percentage was or the rate. So I'll have to take a look at that to see if we were crashing the right number of people per crashes that we wanted to. But at the end of the day, you have to execute on both ends of the floor. If they're open, you have to shoot. If not, you have to drive it, make the right play at the rim. In the first half, we were 14 for 17 in our layups. I'm not sure what the second half numbers were, but you just got to continue to make the right play. Excuse me. Sorry. But again, and not let go of the rope on defense, regardless of the offensive result.
Yeah, the drives by DeSomo, like what happened there? He was getting easily to the rim.
Yeah.
White got easily to the rim. Like, why did you guys let go?
Well,
of
it's a catch-22 when you want to take away their threes. I mean, it's a similar situation to us, so your individual defense is important. Like I said, I thought our first half we executed the details defensively well, and I thought the second half we just kind of have to be better at the individual tendencies, what they like to do, and then just what we want to take away from them.
The early minutes for Springer tonight. What went into that decision? And
Yeah,
what'd you see
why?
out there?
Just match the speed that they play with overall. I thought, he does a good job on the offensive glass and his individual defense, and just kind of wanted to match the speed there. I thought he played well.
You thought he played well? Okay.
Well, all right. So a lot to unpack. What?
Let's hit him with the intro. Let's get the intro. We can't do this.
No. Really?
Hit the intro. Let's
Are you
take a
kidding
second.
me? All right.
Hard Hat's all about showing up to play hard, doing what it takes to win.
If you want to cement legacy, win another.
More Luke.
He's your third center.
You don't want to pump him up too much, but it's hard not to.
This might surprise you, but this is maybe the most I've ever agreed with you.
So this is what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's Joe Mazzulla wishing Merry Christmas to the referees.
Yeah, and a Happy New Year. This is like Merry Christmas, the scene in Home Alone where the guy's got the gun and he goes, "Merry Christmas, you filthy animal."
Yeah, filthy animal.
And he shoots him 1,000 times. That was like what Mazzulla would have done in that situation.
Yeah, filthy animals.
Angels
so
with filthy souls.
Yeah. So anyway, so that happened. Anybody watching the game. And so look, the game's going to all be about refs and this and that. And like, sure, fine. It sucked. And it might have, that stuff doesn't happen. But they did lose their composure. They're bitching about one call. Mazzulla gets on the court. Jalen keeps going. Tatum does the bah at the ref. That's small shit. It's annoying. You never want the refs to take control of a game. And can you get away with stuff? Sure. But everything was tech worthy. And they lost their composure. It's really more about losing your cool than it is like the ref. I hate when the refs do that, but you also you can't just don't give them the opportunity to, and it's there and it's late in the game. It was really stupid. So, people will, make it about the text. That wasn't it. Reality is they played a shit game. Their offense was atrocious. The three-pointers didn't fall. They lost the 3-point math. Mazzulla's at the podium there talking about it, Jimmy, and I don't love it. Like, I don't love that he boils it all down to math. They hit it at this clip, we hit it at that clip. 10 to 15 possessions go different. They played bad, and then they also they laid down on defense way before those techs happened. Like that fourth quarter, they stopped playing defense completely.
I think the text happened due to frustration with the way the game was going for them. Because
no doubt,
at the end of the day, you got teed up twice because they didn't give the jump ball to the right guy. I mean, really, that's what we're getting teed up about. Because they gave a jump ball to Pritchard instead of Jaylen Brown, you're going to give up two. You're going to get 2 technical fouls. Joe Mazzulla knows better than that. You can't just run on the court. That was an easy one. I don't know what the hell Jaylen Brown's problem was, barking at him just because he didn't get the jump ball call. I mean, give me a break. And then Tatum, that's a classic Tatum tee. There's really not much else to say about that. They were frustrated well before those things happened. Tatum even hit a 3-pointer earlier in that game and thought he got fouled and was bitching about it. So it was just one of those games where they let their emotions get ahead of them. They shot 25% from 3. Something tells me that they were a little bit more frustrated about that, John, than they were about the calls. But they let that get the best of them. They gave up on defense. Bobby's going to come on here later and say defense. They gave up on defense, and they did. There's no way around it. The Bulls played harder. They got the second chance points in the second half in that fourth quarter there. Porzingis made a nice block, and sure enough, it ended up a couple shots later. I forget who it was, but they drilled a 3 on the other same possession. So things like that. I didn't think Tatum had a bad game overall. I thought he was the only guy out on the court who actually played well for Boston. I think it was the other guys who couldn't step up tonight. Brown had a pretty rough one, and whoever knows why that was, but. Pritchard had a couple threes in the first quarter, but I thought, he was just as bad as everybody else in the fourth quarter there. So one you chalk up to one of probably their worst loss of the year.
It is points wise their worst loss of the year, but also just the way they played. There wasn't any fight late. Most of the games that they did lose, they were either in it or had the lead. Shots didn't fall, but they still played. Maybe they didn't execute, but this was the one where they just sucked. And I disagree. I disagree with Joe that the process was good in the first half. I didn't love the threes. I thought they were threes for the sake of threes. They took a lot of early in the clock ones, transition ones when they had numbers, contested threes that it was just catch and fire with a guy nearby. I didn't love it at all. Like I didn't love it at all. So
There's nothing to love.
But I hate when it's like I hate when you boil it down to just the make miss league stuff, because it's not always that. And sometimes you have to rewatch the game to get a sense of like how good were those looks and could they have worked for something better and did they settle and this and that. But they just got three happy. And I don't know that it was all.
Well, I mean, as bad as
I don't know that it was all great, and like the whole league is watching now, and like the whole league like hates the Celtics. But the Celtics shot awful all friggin' game long. I mean, 39% for the entire game, 25% from three. It was just a shit game. So that's it. It was just a bad game. But the game we play after losses like this is what matters, right? A bad shooting night probably doesn't matter. Getting flustered because another team beat you at your own game, that's not great. Losing your composure in late, moments, also not great. The one thing I think is one takeaway that people are going to come out to here is Sam Hauser sits again with back spasms, and Joe Mazzulla has nowhere to go, and all of a sudden, Jaden friggin' Springer is in the game.
Oh God!
And I'm not going to be able to understand that. Joe said it's because he's fast. Sure, he's fast and bad.
Congrats on being fast. It's like a wide receiver who's fast, but he can't catch the ball. Great.
Yeah, he put Tyquan Thornton in the game.
Looks
Congratulations.
great in shorts.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And then he doubled down on it and said, speed, defense, blah, blah, blah. The Bulls were getting the red carpet treatment in the fourth quarter if they wanted to get to the rim. There was nothing going on, whether it was Springer or anybody else.
Yeah, I'm getting there, Matt. I'm getting there.
I do not understand the Springer stuff. I mean, they tried it. I guess you go to tip, whatever. You tried it. But and there's the comment with Lonnie Walker. We were firmly on one side, John, and apparently the great basketball minds were on another. And here we are. So again, Springer playing isn't the reason they lost either, but he didn't help. And that was the situation. Yeah, if you had Hauser, maybe Hauser can come in, drain a couple threes, and it's a different game. They couldn't get the momentum in that fourth quarter. As bad as they played, and I wouldn't even say they played horrible, but as not great as they played in the first three quarters and not shot, they still were finding ways to win the game at that point. Going into the fourth quarter, they still had the lead. They were just figuring it out. It was ugly, but they were figuring it out. And then, again, I think the emotions got the best of them. I think all of a sudden the Bulls went with a lineup that just, and again, this is cliche too, but they played harder. They quote unquote wanted it more, right? It's just how it looked out there. I'm not saying that that's factual, but if you're watching the game, if you're watching the game, the unbiased take would be that the way the Bulls were playing and the way, Levine there was playing, they were just sharper, harder, faster, stronger, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. What I will say is, and again, this is the comment, DJ, and I know a lot of people say this, $4 million doesn't seem like a lot of money, but $4 million sure is a lot of money to play someone who can't play. And it's already been like determined. The reason Springer and his very modest contract, in NBA terms, wasn't dealt in the offseason was because nobody wants him. And in order to trade him, you need to attach picks.
We got Jaylen Brown.
We're going to hear Jaylen Brown. So let's get to Jaylen real quick because he was part of the whole tech fiasco.
Jaylen, can you describe what the last 4 or 5 days have been like for you after having the situation with your family and the break-in and what's been going through your mind?
It's been a tough week. Obviously, my mother's security is of utmost importance to me, and that's been compromised. And so it's been a tough week. We've had, media members and reporters outside our house trying to get an inside scoop, have some respect. It's been a tough week, I'm not gonna lie.
And what does basketball help? I mean, you were at practice yesterday. I mean, is that taking stuff off your mind? And how is your family doing?
We all right. I mean, you deal with situations accordingly. Thank God nothing, serious or physical or threatening happened, but the fact that it could have, just kind of lingers in your mind.
Jalen, they got up a lot of threes tonight. It's rare that a team is able to keep pace with you guys, sort of shooting threes. What did you see from them that allowed them to get up that many threes, and what did you see from your guys' end that made it easier for them to get up that many threes?
I thought they did a good job. Chicago, they played physical. They hit shots. They guarded well, and they hit shots tonight. Patrick Williams hit some shots. Levine hit some tough ones. And it's the NBA. Teams hitting shots and guarding well. Anything can happen on any given night.
Jalen, I think Emile kind of went through the same thing, a similar thing, robbery. What have you guys kind of talked about as a team in terms of your guys' security, your family's security, going forward this year?
Yeah, I mean, the Celtics have provided information for us to kind of figure it out and make sure, we can do our job when we travel and stuff. And I know it's been going on in different parts of the world and in different parts of the U.S. where, similar things have happened to athletes, et cetera. So hopefully, anybody, who it hasn't happened to yet, just make sure you have the things in place to make sure that it doesn't. But, obviously to go through that experience and, people still in there, still in the crib and stuff like that it just makes you think about some things differently.
Tonight felt like the latest example of your growth facilitating out of the low post. How do you feel like you've developed in that area?
I just do what my team needs me to do. The game was an interesting game, but I feel like
What are you laughing about?
Just the question.
I feel like the way they were calling.
This is what the people want to know.
We didn't adjust too quick enough. Maybe I didn't adjust too quick enough. Et cetera.
Jimmy, are you playing with your mic or is Jalen playing with his?
My mic's over here, actually.
The way they call the
To be
game
honest, my
is
mic is too far from me. I need to move it over. So I'm going to go ahead and do that.
Jalen, you mentioned.
Yeah, it's you. Stop it.
No, it wasn't.
Some things differently. What kind of things do you think about differently, and how do you kind of react to something like this moving forward?
Next question.
What when you find out what happened, what's kind of the emotions? Obviously, your family is most important to you. What's your emotions and making sure everyone's fine, and how did you kind of deal with it?
I don't got a comment. Next question.
Jalen, when there was a jump ball and Joe got the tech, you were pointing at the Justin Van Dung. It seemed like you were upset about the previous non-call when you went to the hoop and you got hit.
Okay.
How do you guys try to control your emotions?
Here's the thing, you get fined. I got fined a couple weeks ago for inadvertent gestures that are determined not a part of the game, which was fine. I took the fine, but what part of the game is a ref, calling inadvertent technical foul, and then I said to him, you called a tech for no reason. He said, if you say it to me again, I'm gonna call another tech. You call a tech for no reason. Then he called the tech. Man, get out of here. You can't threaten guys with a technical foul. That's not part of the game either. You want to fine people for gestures and all this stuff. Fine that. That's some bullshit. We were down 3 at that time on the jump ball. Then that led to us being down 8. That affects the game. That could have been avoided. Joe didn't say anything to deserve a tech. And then when I come up to you and say, you're getting a tech for no reason, as a captain, before the game, I come and shake all the refs' hands because I speak for my team. I'm allowed to talk. So when I tell you, you just called a tech for no reason, and you say, if you say it again, I'm going to call another tech, then I say it again and you call a tech, you just threaten your whistle as a threat. That's not a part of the game either. And I think it's bullshit.
He kind of did exactly what he said he was going to do.
Look.
If you tell me you're going to tee me up if I say something, and then I say something and you tee me up, that's messed up.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure of the logic.
I think I know what he's saying.
I know what he's saying. He's basically saying, try me, it's almost instigating, but a ref absolutely. Look, I don't want
It's a
to.
weak. It is a weak tech.
I'm not taking a ref side here. I thought it was. These are bullshit soft techs. Refs absolutely though can and do tell players all the time. You keep it up, I'm going to hit you with a T. So
Right.
that's absolutely part of the game, 100%.
But it sucks.
But basically, if all Jalen said was, why did you give him that tech? And he says, if you question me again, like, you can question him. You can't yell at him. You can't berate them. Like,
Right.
you're allowed to ask them, like, why did you give that tech out? You can't say, if you ask me that again. So that's weak sauce for sure. Look, and this, I feel really bad for Brown at the podium today because it's scary shit, man. Like,
I'm kind of surprised
his mom's home and someone's trying to break in. Like, that's bad. And so, like, obviously he's shook coming in. He missed practice, I don't think he was himself tonight. And I think that's excusable. And then he's hot off of the tech thing here and he's just kind of getting grilled with it. So like,
And the
he's
only
definitely,
reason,
his blood's up right now. Yeah.
The only reason he even went to the podium is because apparently there's like 100 TV crews there, right? I mean, otherwise it's probably not even a Jalen podium game.
Guys, there's a lot of news crews there today. And I'll tell you this, as someone who once worked at one of these places that'll remain nameless, you can find out pretty easily if you wanted to, but I'm not here to bash anybody. I am here to say that we have absolutely, I know the game, and the game is to just go and stake out the house, and it is freaking brutal that they do that. And then I've got PR guys calling me saying, can you tell your news crews to get out of there? And I'm like, look, man, I'm the sports guy. I cannot call off the dogs. It's a shitty situation. And you got people now, lurking outside, and they're putting your friggin' house on TV now, and everyone's got the address.
The part that sucks.
I hate that shit. I hate that.
I would bet 90-something% of the people, 99% of the people did not know Jaylen Brown's mom's house from the next house. By the way, unbelievable looking house because it's blasted all over the news. It's a great house. I'll say that. But I'm sure, like, now it's like, okay, so a couple of bad guys knew where she lived. Now everybody knows, which can't be, that's like kind of like it's a shitty situation, like you said. But
yeah, it sucks. It sucks. So tough go for Jalen. I do feel bad for him there. Generally speaking, I always hate, that's a tough scenario there to have to talk about that kind of stuff. That being said, Jalen had an off game for sure. Defensively, I think he was one of the big culprits as well. So he's another guy that frustration seeped in, but we're going to give Jalen a pass for being off and being frustrated.
Sure.
And I'm not saying that because it's like, oh, that's the right thing to say. Like, I absolutely think totally understandable if his head wasn't all there today. And it makes perfect sense to me. So, that's what we've got there. Crappy game. Lots to talk about as well. Yeah.
So wild. This is a wild little post game we're having here.
It is. I mean, there's a lot of stuff happened. A lot of stuff happened.
We got Bobby and Noah at the game, right?
Bobby and Noah are there. They're going to pop up in a little bit as well, and we'll do a few things when we get there. Talk to those guys, hear their thoughts. I know Bobby's got some hot Springer takes. I do want to talk about the
Team Springer, isn't she?
No, Noah is bullish on.
Yeah, she was like Springer. She was at the top. She was like at the front of the Springer parade in the preseason.
We'll see. I think she wants to give Springer a shot, but again, it's tough. He's not there yet. Before we do that, we're going to tell you a couple different things as well. And we're going to start with our lovely sponsors over at Prize Picks. And it's the best place to get real money sports action. 10 million members, billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Pick more, pick less. At least 2 players, shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long. Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app and the official partner of the CLNS Media Network. I love playing this. I love sitting down. I love making my selections. I love basketball season. That's my favorite one to play. You can focus in on one game, pick your players. You can kind of look at the whole slate, whatever you want. You've got your, crappy Thursday night NFL games, which you can absolutely get involved with now, even though there's a decent one going on as we speak. So again, holiday season, make it bigger and brighter with Prize Picks. Best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. Join now because this holiday season, Prize Picks giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30 million plus in rewards during Pickmas. James Cook, 60 yards, sure, whatever. Joe Burrow, whatever you have. Drake May. I'm feeling a Drake May. He has arrived game against Buffalo, and not for any reason other than Buffalo's going to score 100 points and the Pats are going to have to score like 30 just to keep it to 70. I could see May putting up some big numbers. So download that app, use the code CLNS, get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Once again, download the app, use the code CLNS to get 50 instantly after you play your first, your first 5. Prize Picks, run your game. I do see potentially can I do my quick Drake May digression?
Give your spiel. Go ahead.
And then we'll get back to basketball.
Sure.
I
can't wait for a word to come out.
Everybody here knows I'm not a homer. Not by nature. I not by nature. I want it, but I don't ever jump out on something just because they're wearing the uniform. I think Drake May is like literally possibly a top 5 quarterback already. I'm so over the moon on May, and it's amazing national media hasn't fully caught on.
Yeah, that's bizarre, but
I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this. He's a top 5 trade asset in the NFL today, meaning he might be one of the 5 most valuable players to have. So we'll see what happens. And again, it's age, contract, ceiling, all of those things. I don't know how many other humans you put in Foxborough right now and come out with better results than he's had. But because he doesn't ever have gaudy numbers, because it's virtually impossible to throwing to these jabronis, it's every game, even the good games are like, wow, he made a lot of smart reads and a lot of smart throws and used his legs to avoid pressure. And he finished with, completed 80% of his passes for 200 yards. So it looks like dink and donkey, but that's not what he's doing. He's literally that's the only thing in the world he could possibly do to survive, and he's doing it beautifully. But I could see a big coming out party here against Buffalo in a game they're going to get killed, but I could see May slinging it all over the yard, trying to keep up with Allen, the heir apparent to Allen. So I wouldn't be stunned here. So I like May. If you're going to run your game with Prize Picks, get after it. Mac Jones did not look as good. Neither did Daniel Jones. Neither did Sanchez. It's not even close with those guys. It's not close. He's a different animal right now. Not even close.
I would say he's got more tools in the arsenal than those guys. In Buffalo, anyway, John, you think May's just gonna go off in Buffalo against?
I think he's gonna have the numbers where people will take notice, but that's all. Anyway, back to this game, Jimmy, and so we'll talk about it here. It's gotten silly, right? Like it's impossible to watch this game and not only talk about math, right? Like the Celtics have kind of screwed things up a little bit, right? Like,
yeah,
they have. Joe Mazzulla might be the most hated man in the NBA right now. It's a story that's definitely not going away. And every time you watch a game where the threes don't fall, people really lose their patience. Like if they knock down 1 million of them, you'll roll your eyes and be like, well, whatever, it's boring. But when you have these brickathons, and again, it's really ugly and people are getting really mad. I don't know that changes. Like they really it was already a big deal when they were shooting 42 a game and people were like, there's too many threes. And they really just kind of broke the NBA. And I don't think this story is going anywhere like this year at all.
No, this year, absolutely not. I mean, how could it? Listen, 3 is more than 2. So teams are going to, you can't beat them, you join them, right, John? I mean, that's kind of the saying. So
that's what they're doing.
What you're going to see is more and more whether or not they have the players to do it or not. And nobody has the players as much as the Celtics do because they are just stacked with 3-point shooters. They were first to do it. It's kind of Belichickian in a way. Belichick, the league goes 4-3, Belichick goes 3-4. The league goes 3-4, Belichick goes back to 4-3. And so it's like the Celtics, Missoula, give them a little bit of credit for sort of leading the charge here and changing the way things are done. And now teams are trying to play catch up. And as soon as they play catch up, well, maybe all of a sudden, you'll see the Celtics bring in a couple of 7-footers and just dominate in another way. I have no idea, but they're following the rules. They're not breaking any rules here. They're doing what the league allows them to do, whether you like it or not. They're the most equipped to do it. There are going to be stinkers. Tonight's a good example of that. Still a competitive game. It kind of goes down. It's kind of a more competitive game when the Celtics, at least, aren't hitting the shots as much as they should be. But when a mediocre team or a bad team decides, hey, we want to be like you, and they're just not able to, then yeah, or two teams playing each other, it gets ugly. I forget the two teams, but I saw it a couple of days ago. They combined for by far the most missed threes in the history of the game.
It was Chicago and Charlotte.
Chicago. Okay, so there you go.
But the Chicago's this is the second game that they've gone toe to toe with the Celtics on this, and I mean this one they ended up a good bit ahead, and obviously you can point to 3-point math as a reason why they won, and it is. And if the Celtics shoot at their level, they win this game too, which is just kind of the thing. It's a law of averages, and Missoula is going to recognize that you're going to have games like this, and you lose them when the other team hits theirs, and sometimes you win them. Their record in games when they've shot poorly from three have been good. I'm not saying that the strategy is wrong. The strategy is right. What bothers me is the thing you said earlier. Because I think you're right on there. It's like Belichick 3-4, 4-3, and this and that. Evolve, everybody. Stop complaining. Evolve. Even the Celtics do it. Stop. If you don't want to give up threes, stay home. Sure. Live with don't help. Don't get caught in rotation. Live with guys getting into the lane, taking switch and stay on people and live with mismatches and or guys taking contested twos in the paint or taking it to the basket. Because if they miss, you transition the other way and you're off and running. You're almost better for it. So adapt. It's exactly like you said. Imagine everyone in the NFL complaining that all teams did, was run the ball.
They're playing 3 tight ends. That's not fair.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, all they do is run. It's boring. Well, then stop playing dime coverage with a bunch of D-backs out there. Bring them up to the line. And when you do, then they start throwing again. You have to pick your poison. Decide. If you don't want to get killed by 53s and you don't want to lose the math battle, stay home. Teams are so stubborn about the switching and the helping, and they overhelp. Stop. Even the Celtics did it to the Bulls. Stay home. Yeah. Don't concede the 3. I don't understand why they do it. So, it's always going to be a story when you have games like this, and it's going to continue to be. But I don't understand the complaints right now. It's up to the teams. Yeah, it's up to the teams.
It's sour grapes. I think
just defend, and the 3s are harder, and live with the other shots. It's so friggin' obvious.
I also think a lot of not all of it, because we're hearing it from inside the NBA guys too, but a lot of the hate is from fans who aren't really
Yeah, I'd be giving Tatum layups all day. I'd be letting Tatum shoot at the rim all day.
Right.
I would.
I think a lot of the criticism comes from people who aren't huge basketball fans to begin with, so they take every opportunity they can to say why the league sucks, and they say, oh, look at all the threes they take, or look at this, or blah, blah, blah. And it's always going to be something. The haters are going to hate. That's one thing we know, especially when it comes to the Celtics. They're going to find ways to hate on the Celtics team, regardless of how they win. They're going to minimize it. They're going to say it's boring, or they're going to say it sucks, whatever. It doesn't really matter because they're winning at the clip they're winning. And yeah, they are going to lose, what is it? So they played 27 games and they're 21-6. They're going to lose one every 7 or whatever. I'm not going to do the math right now. One every 5 or 6. And they'll take that. They'll absolutely take that. Now, whether the league has to step in at some point and, I don't know, change the way that what do people want? Change the way the game is played? Go start making stupid rules, or change the 3-point line, or make it worth 2.5 points. Like, I don't know what people freaking are like. What are you going to do? You're going to change it all because the Celtics just decided to play a different style? I don't know. I mean, it's like the NBA Cup. Like, what do you want them to do? You want them to, in the NBA Cup, you can change a bunch of stuff around. It's because it's stupid, but this is the way the game is played. That is how you make the NBA Cup interesting. Make it like a 4-point shot. Make a bunch of dumb stuff. People might like that.
So that's what honestly, at the end of the day, that's what you should. And look, it all comes down to math. The only way you fix it is changing the equation. Anything else is going to be really Mickey Mouse, but you can't change the equation because you'll screw up every record and everything that's ever been held. But if you make 3's worth 4 and 2's worth 3, then the math, then the advantage goes away.
And that's way too much counting.
But it's so many points, or 3 and 2.5. What?
Yeah.
Fractional points.
Right.
But you can't.
I don't know. It's who's like what's the big issue? Is the big issue who has the biggest issue? And NBA fans, or is it just sports fans who want
I think a little bit of everybody. I think Noah, we did a segment the other day, and I think Noah made a good point. It's not 3s, it's too homogeneous. It all looks the same now. So there's nothing different.
Genius, huh?
Every game looks the same because everyone's doing the same thing. So it just fits this pattern, and it's boring because it's, instead of watching your favorite player cook somebody, hit a really high degree of difficulty shot, or take it to the rim and dunk and do more exciting things, what their job now is to do is drive to the paint, draw defenders, and kick it out to the fourth option on the team, and he shoots a 3. That's not as exciting, and everybody's doing the same sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, old heads will be like people defending it say, well, what do you want? Contested 2s? Kinda. It's more, look, when you go play basketball in the yard, or you're playing with your buddies and you're playing out, are you sitting here working the ball for an open 3, or are you just going and playing? Like, when you play ball, you're attacking, you're going to the basket, you're trying to hit shots, you're trying to make good passes to guys for easy 2s. Yeah, whatever. I mean, I had one guy who played with at the Y all the time, Daniel Duresh. The kid never left the 3-point line. Never, ever. He was way ahead of his time. Yeah, he had a fun little quick release too. That's all he did. I don't think in every game we ever played, 100 plus hundreds of pickup games, I don't think he ever shot a non-3.
That's wild.
It's unbelievable.
That is wild. Yeah, good for him. Yeah, he was ahead of the game.
Going back to the game itself, because again, this is a conversation that's not going anywhere. But it was good to see Kristaps Porzingis back in. We didn't talk about it. I thought, a
couple nice blocks.
He was moving great. I thought, I really did. And no concern at all with whatever heel contusion and this and that he had. Very fact that he was even questionable for this game was great. So it was good to have him back in there. We got to catch up with him after the game. This is Bobby in the locker room. I think he's talking about the Joe situation at the end of the game where he kind of lost his cool. Here you go.
Joe getting held back after the game ended there.
Yep.
Say that again, sorry?
Did you see Joe getting held back from the refs after the game there?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
What do you think of that?
I was just, it was the heat of the moment, Joe's a passionate guy. He fights for his team. He's willing to get a tag for us. He probably felt like we were, some, not so great calls tonight. It just happens. Joe's a passionate guy.
I love this dude.
No lie. No lies.
I like this dude.
Yeah.
He's so
dude.
funny. Yeah.
Yeah, we were all wrong on Porzingis. We were all wrong.
You were.
Somebody
like the wrongest.
Somebody called him a dink way back.
Yeah. Might have been. That might have been said.
Have to go check out the tapes.
Yeah. That might have been said.
Anyways.
It's okay. As we said, we're waiting on Bobby, but good to see Porzingis in there. He's always got a good attitude with it. So
yes.
I'm digging that. Like I said, Bobby and Noah, they're setting up. They're
Real
going to
quick
jump
on
on here.
Porzingis, though.
Yeah.
I just got to say, the block in the first, and I think I just saw another one in the fourth. He's all over the place, man. I mean, he's already like nope. I'm not worried about a thing with him when he's out in the court. Not a thing. I think he's just back, fully back. 20-8 tonight. That's kind of what you're gonna. I think like you're gonna get that 20-8, maybe a couple assists, 20-something and 8, 22-8. Something like that. I mean, gosh, he's not forcing anything. I would like to see a couple more threes fall than have, but other than that, I feel like he's kind of where I don't think anyone can be upset where he's at. We were hopeful that he would be returning to the team around this time when when we were told about the timeline. We're like, oh, it's a Christmas return, and he's already at this point. It's a Kristaps miss.
Yeah.
Merry Kristaps miss.
So again, there's no way we're always going to be worried about. We talked about this last game with Noah as well when he got hurt, and then it turns out when they said contusion rather than anything else, blah blah blah. It wasn't as big a deal, but you're always going to be worried about Porzingis. Every time he runs, I'm worried he's going to tear everything. Every time he jumps, every time he lands, I'm always worried he's going to step one of his big feet on somebody else's foot and twist an ankle. Like
Don't speak that into existence because
that's not going away. But the bigger injury issue right now, oddly, is Hauser, because it's like this is old. This is an old man injury. The back spasms and the fact that this is recurring, that's not great. And they have no wing depth, zero. So everybody's really mad that Jason Tatum didn't start the fourth quarter. There was a lot of comments to that effect earlier. Guys, they can't. That's the rotation. And in fact, he came in earlier than he normally does. I think he came in closer to the 8-minute mark instead of 6-minute mark. Yeah, sometimes it feels like Joe's playing with fire there in a really tight game, but it's also the freaking Chicago Bulls. And you've got basically your top 7 players in there. You should be able to hang in there without Tatum. You're not talking about game 7 against OKC of the finals here. Like, it's the Bulls. You should be able to survive a few minutes without Tatum in the fourth quarter. A lot of teams do that with their stars. It is what it is. The Hauser thing, though, just shows like what are you going to do there? Like you need somebody to play, and it's not great when you don't have him. And this is where the Lonnie Walker conversation is going to come in, or somebody. And like I've been banging on wing depth for a while, and they didn't address it. They went out and got KP and Holiday instead, which was better, but it still hasn't gone away. Like that issue there,
which was better.
But thank God Hauser's as good as he is. But
they got lucky with Hauser. They didn't know Hauser
without him. Without him, they got nothing.
Absolutely. I mean, they last year, did anyone think Hauser was going to be even close to as good as he was? No, they got lucky, but they kind of doubled down on it in the offseason, and instead of addressing it in the offseason, going into this year, kind of in the same boat. And again, going back to Lonnie Walker, not that we need to keep rehashing it, but we kind of do. There's your wing depth. And didn't it just come down to money in the end more than anything? The tax that they would have taken.
Yeah, 100%
on Walker. So thanks a lot, Irv. Is this guy going to sell the team or what? Maybe we can get some good players in here.
Nah, that's what it's going to be there. I don't think that's going anywhere, but that's where we're at. We're waiting on, as we said, waiting on Tatum, waiting on Bobby and Noah.
Stuff? This is just going to be a nagging thing like for the rest of the season. I mean, It's a back. What are you going to do? Screws up your whole day. You can't sleep right.
Can't do anything.
Can't do anything. How did this happen? Didn't you even know?
I don't know. And this is what we said here. Like they tried trading Springer and they tried, we're talking about Lonnie. I feel like I know Bobby's going to come in hot on this, so I'm going to save some of this for him. I feel like something's got to happen there because that's an area you're going to struggle in. If Hauser misses any time, it's not going to it might not make or break the season, but it's definitely a hole So we'll see where that goes. Real quick, jump in here as we wait for Tatum to take the podium and Bobby and Noah to jump in, tell you about another one of our terrific sponsors here at the Garden Report. That, of course, is Game Time. And again, Celtics, go in and check out the C's if you want. Patriots, final 2 games after this one in Buffalo. They're home and home to close out the season. So your last chance to get a look at the final days of Gerard Mayo, whatever you want. But again, tickets are not that expensive. You want to get in on a Patriots game right now, not a bad idea to go check it out. I love the features on this app, the all-in pricing, where you know exactly what you're going to have to pay without any surprise fees at the end. I love the panoramic views from your seats. Just tons of good features here. And really, whether it's a game, concert, doesn't matter. I like going to my shows, Jimmy. I'm going to a lot of concerts. I've used Game Time multiple times here, and it's really done me well. So again, download that app, create an account, use the code CLNS, $20 off your first purchase. Every dollar counts here when you're going to see some of these events. We know it's not cheap. So again, check it out, download the app, create an account, code CLNS, $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it, Jimmy?
Game time.
It's game time. It's game time.
Game time, baby.
Yeah.
We got some good. Listen, there's some good sporting events coming up too. You got the Bruins at home coming up right before Christmas. You got the Celtics on Christmas. There's some good stuff. Patriots. If you want to sneak in, if you want to catch John's MVP candidate Drake May, you can still get into the Pats games for dirt cheap.
Yeah.
I actually did see his first game against the Texans. I was there for it. So history was made. Shout out Game Time. So yeah.
Shout out Game Time. What else you got on this game, Jimmy? And again, it's scrap it. Here's the one thing I do like. I love the 2 game. I love the baseball series. I love the 2 game. I love it. Because
I don't mind to do that.
You're going at exactly what the Bulls did to you, and you're going to be annoyed that it happened, and you're going to want to come at.
There's no negatives to it, really. I mean, like you said, it becomes more of a chess game a little bit, right? And it becomes more emotional because if there are some fireworks, which there were a little bit, not so much player to player in this one, but if there's some emotions that kind of build up and pent up. How does that flip? How does that have an effect on the next game? So I like that it adds that. I like that more than I like the NBA Cup. It's something different that the NBA has done over the last couple of years to limit travel and things like that. I get it. But it works out. I would welcome more of these, sort of back-to-back type games. As far as the Bulls are concerned, though, I mean, they're not really a team that I don't think anyone's pumped to see, but Zach LaVine's having an unbelievable year for them, and
I do think we have to revisit we made light of the Joe Mazzulla stuff.
Let's circle back to it.
He said what he said about the holidays, and he was really calm, like at the podium, which means he knows he lost his shit, and had to bring it back down. There, he lost his freaking mind. He looked like he wanted to throw hands. I think Jimmy, your text was pretty on. Jimmy texts right before we jump on the jump to the show. Mazzulla may get arrested tonight.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny to me when just with Joe, when I see the assistants holding him back, because what if they just didn't hold him back? What would happen? Most guys hold me back, and they're not really going to do anything. But I wonder if Joe would just snap. That guy clearly, he bit of a he does the jujitsu and all that stuff. It probably wouldn't take much for him to break something.
Yeah, I mean, there's a legit non-zero chance before
what if
Joe
you just
Mazzulla's
let him
life,
go and see what happens?
like
we're
I said,
having another convo.
There's a non-zero chance that before Joe Mazzulla's life is over, he murders someone. It's definitely it's on. I'll take it's on
the fact
board.
that he was so cool and
there
calm.
There are odds for it. Yeah.
The fact that he was so cool, calm, and collected, and just made a pretty funny joke. Like within minutes of having to be held
Hey,
back.
you
Yeah.
got kids? You
Yeah,
got
yeah.
kids?
3 minutes prior, he was being held back by like 6 people. He wanted to murder multiple human beings. 3 minutes later, he's just like, you had like it never happened, cracking jokes, cool, calm, and collected. It takes a certain kind of crazy person to be able to do that. Certain type of crazy person. I'm glad he's on our side. I'm glad he's our crazy person.
Yeah, I think this is another kind of notch on the Missoula belt is like the most interesting man in the world. Like this ups his status. I think people love watching him try to murder a referee.
Why not? Nobody likes the refs anyways. You're not going to find anyone being like, "Hey, give the refs a chance here."
It's like John
hear their
Chaney.
side of it. Yeah.
The old Johnny Chaney. I'll kill you.
I'll kill you.
Yeah,
no
he
one
was.
If you want to go after a ref,
He was hot. Here's Tatum.
There's not many people who are going to stop you.
Let's hear some Tatum.
Jason, obviously you and Emil are close. How's he doing? How did you learn about the events that happened this week, and what did you guys talk about as a team
Bobby.
after?
Bobby funeral voice.
Bobby somber voice.
Very unfortunate, and really puts things in perspective. And just glad that everybody is safe and healthy, and just letting them know that you're there for them in however way you can be.
How are you guys feeling? Like, is it scary?
Tatum, well, everybody gets their houses broken
threatened by what's going on. I know there's been a lot of similar events with athletes, across the country.
I mean, I don't really live life in fear, but just take the precautions and make sure you and those that are close to you can be safe as possible.
Jason, both you guys and the Bulls got up 50-plus threes tonight. It's rare that you see a team able to sort of keep pace with you guys when it comes to attempting threes. What did you see from them that allowed them to get up that many, and what did you see from you guys that sort of allowed them to take that many?
Yeah, I mean, they playing a lot faster this year. It seems like a point of emphasis for them to generate more threes. And we played our normal game tonight. We just didn't shoot the ball nearly as well as we normally do.
Jason, Joe's asked about that technical and the conversation he attempted to have with the refs after the game. He said he was just wishing them a Merry Christmas. I'm curious, what was the conversation with the ref like for you, and what's your assessment of your technical?
I don't know. It was just tough. I feel like that segment that Justin had, kind of changed out, not the outcome of the game, but definitely just changed that segment of the game. You don't necessarily love that. You want the players to play and dictate the game and stuff like that. But 82 games, shit happens.
Jason, over to your right. This seemed like a kind of an uncharacteristic loss of composure, maybe. You guys don't normally let the frustration carry through an entire game. You find a pocket there where you guys can go on a run, but this time it seemed like maybe the misses, maybe the officiating, some stuff kind of piled up and led to a lot of frustration. You guys couldn't shake. What was it about tonight that kind of led to you guys unable to shake that frustration?
Maybe just a tough night. We shot the ball poorly tonight, and we felt like we generated a lot of good looks. First half our defense was still pretty good. I think human nature may have played a part that, we just missing some shots, frustrated with that, frustrated with the officials. And, it still was a 6-point game with 3-4 minutes left to go. But, we just missed a few bunnies there.
Jason, when you see an official, whoever it is, kind of have one of those nights where he's a little sensitive, he or she, how do you react to that? How do you, when you know that, okay, this dude might be tripping a little bit, how do you respond to that and try to stay out of trouble?
Well, you didn't.
I'm not perfect. You know, sometimes I try to stay out of it. Sometimes I let them know. Probably something I could get better at, but you know, I played in this league long enough. There's certain nights that you know don't.
John, are you crumbling things over
want them
there?
to go from officiating, but
I crumbled something.
Yeah, I know.
you just got to move.
The whole
on.
world knows.
Jalen said how tough a week it's been for him. Obviously, it must be super emotional. Could you imagine playing in a game so quickly after that happened to your mom? And how do you, as teammates, kind of try to help him get through it? Try to help him just feel at ease a little bit when he's with you guys? Yeah, no, I can only imagine. And like I said earlier, it really puts things in perspective. Right? Obviously, everybody's family is most important. More important than any game that we'll play. So I can only imagine how tough that is to have that on your mind and still come out here and try to do your job at a high level. So just being there for him in any way that we can, and knowing that we kind of all in this together.
All right. Thanks, Jason. I'm going to hit on one answer here that I liked. The Jason Tatum tech stuff saying that he's not perfect. I like that he said that, because we give him a lot of crap, like a lot of people do. Like, because I guess people, they do expect it. Like, that's everybody, right? Like, how many people you have in your life, or how many situations you're like, man, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. Or like
Every day, pretty much.
Every day, or you have someone in your life. It's a parent, a significant other, a relative, a brother, 9 out of 10 times you ignore the thing that bothers you. And the one time you're like, I gotta let this be known. I've been holding it in and I'm going to pop, and you do it. And then you're like, I shouldn't have friggin' done it. Like, everybody in the world does this, and it's not like he's not Draymond. He's not getting like a tech every 3 days. It just is what it is. Generally speaking, I wish he would just like go more stretches of games where he just pretends the refs don't exist. Like, just free your mind completely if you can, because it's impossible for him to get through a game where he's going to the hole and not thinking he got hit every single time and turning around and looking at the ref. He can't really get that out of his head. So the reaction's going to get him the tech. I just wish he would just clear his mind completely of it. He just doesn't need it. It just doesn't. It has no benefit. It can only get in your own head. It can only make things worse for you. I don't know why he can't just just reach that little Zen place where it's just not a thing anymore.
It's just a habit, I
Yeah.
think he gets into the.
It's not a hangable offense. A lot of people do it. I just, I feel like you could just get there.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because he's not an emotional guy. Like, we just heard him at the podium. We've been listening to him, or trying to stay awake listening to him for years.
That's why I got off. And someone in the comments was like, dude, I'm falling asleep. You got to get off this.
And so, like, for him to choose that to like be emotional about is like, or to like show emotion and anger towards, it's like, I love to see emotion on the court. I'm the biggest like pro emotion guy, but I want it to be channeled in the right way. I want it to be put towards the right things, get fired up about something with your teammates or against the opponent. If you want to get angry and you're angry at the opponent, I'd much rather see that. I hate the ref stuff. It's something that I think I've just kind of come to accept with Tatum more than anything. And again, it's not all the time, but he does it a lot. It's just he doesn't get teed up all the time for it, but it still happens way more than it should. He expects like the superstar treatment, I guess, and I don't even know who gets it. I really don't even know who gets it. Yeah, thank you, Walker. And I don't know if it's not really something that can be taught. It's more like it's like a mindfulness thing, like you said, John. You just gotta like find your Zen or something. Like be more like, pick up something that's gonna change the way you think about how refs treat you. I really don't know, but what else? What can you say about it? We can't do a whole show on Tatum.
All right, I'm gonna put Jason's hot take on here too.
Okay. Are you gonna read it? You want me to read it?
Oh no, I was just letting people.
Well, people might be listening. What is the Celtics record with or without Porzingis? Hot take: he doesn't elevate the team.
Yikes! Loud.
He's a skilled guy, but Celtics don't seem to suffer when he doesn't play. Wow, that is from Jason. The Walrus was Jason.
Yeah.
An anti-Porzingis take. Yeah, I said it's a hot take. Okay. I was going to read
Yeah,
that
no, he doubled down, said
He
it's a hot
doubled down.
take.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
do you
know.
agree with
I mean,
it? I really
no,
don't.
I don't. I think the rim protection, not just eye test, but empirical evidence with the numbers was instant and profound. They cannot survive like they did last year. I hate having the whole injuries and blah, blah, blah argument about the finals last year. But yes, that does help. If they play fully healthy teams the entire way through, winning without Porzingis would have been more challenging for sure. Doesn't mean they wouldn't have, but it would have been more challenging. So yes, it elevates them. I thought Porzingis made them invincible. And without
It's
him,
impossible to say
there's more flaws. So I disagree with that take, but it was interesting enough to post. Yeah,
sure. Just puts more of the burden on the other guy.
Yeah, Bobby, there's a lot of background noise on that shot. I'm going to hold off a little bit there because it's coming in really hot. Is that really loud to you too?
Yeah, it was loud. I just don't know what he can do about it. I don't know if he can do anything unless it's a different mic that they're.
Yeah.
Is it coming through the actual microphone or is it coming through the headphones?
I don't know.
Because it's kind of sounded like maybe it was coming through the headphones.
Yeah. Hard to say. All right, we'll try Bob. We'll try Bobby again. Hi, Bobby.
Hey. Checking this.
Bobby, I think it's coming out of your headphone microphone.
Yeah, I don't think the mic's. You're not talking through the mic right now. It sounds like you're talking through your headphones. We'll get that in a little bit there, and see, and we'll try to get to Bobby, and then Noah's going to jump in there as well. With that, but
damn it,
yeah,
Amit.
look, no, it's not Amit. I know KP's a luxury item. But it's beyond that. I really do think he's just made them better.
He makes them better. He allows them to play.
In very obvious ways. Yeah,
well, listen,
in very obvious ways.
He allows them to score differently too. I mean, yeah, he is going to take threes, but he's a great low post scorer, one of the best, in the game, right? Post players. So if people are clamoring for anything besides 3-pointers, and you want to see a guy like Porzingis in there because he can score in a multitude of ways. So.
Yeah.
Yeah,
all right. While we set up Bobby, I'm going to quickly do one more. And again, sorry, we're here. We're paying bills, and we're happy to have these sponsors, and we're happy to tell you about Built. So we'll take a quick pause, and then when we're done here, we will bring Bobby and Noah on and get their takes on the game. If you haven't heard of Built, you're about to thank me. Earning points on rent now a reality. When you pay your rent through Built, you don't even have to check with your landlord to start earning points that you can use towards flights, hotel stays, fitness classes, even on your next rent payment. Built changed the game by letting renters earn high value points on rent and around their neighborhoods. So again, no cost to join. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotel and airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of. And you can use those valuable points on rent and towards everyday spending. There are over 500 airlines, 700,000 hotels and properties around the world you can redeem your Built points toward. Points can also be redeemed towards, as we said, a future rent payment. Unique experiences that only Built members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/garden. That's joinbilt.com/garden. Make sure to use that URL so they know we sent you. Once again, joinbuilt.com/garden. And I will tell you this, everyone who pays rent at CLNS Media is using it. We signed up. Not me. I'm a mortgage guy. It is what it is. But all the renters, Yeah, it's fun. All the renters, they're using it. So you should
Did
check it out as
refinance?
well.
You get a nice low rate.
I was locked in really. I'm in a good shape.
Oh, you were locked in like the
I'm way.
70s, right? Yeah.
I've owned my home since 1949. So like I bought this thing cost me $11,000. It's amazing in Newton. Crazy.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you got to steal.
Let's bring in. Yeah, we did. Let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this. What are we doing here?
Oh, it sounds
How many-
better. We can't see him, but it sounds better.
We'll try these guys. Hi guys. No, that's not
How's
the
it
one I
going?
want, but I'll live with that. Oh, good. Welcome, guys. Nice to see you. What's going on?
Somber vibes here, I would say.
Well, we got somber Bobby off the top, and the Tatum. It's sleepy enough in there, Bobby. You went somber voice like right off the top.
You somber voice Tatum right away.
You can't somber. You
definitely.
can't
And
out somber
if you somber voice a guy like Tatum, what do you think's going to happen to the energy?
Yeah, you just out sombered the most somber guy in the whole arena.
You and Tatum would have an electric podcast.
We had
by
a
the way.
somber off. We didn't even know we had a somber off. It was the quietest standoff in the history.
Yeah, unique
Anyways.
situation there. And I do wonder how that impacted this game. I'm not going to point to that. But this was a weird one. I hadn't seen them get this thrown off emotionally in a late game situation in a long time. And we've heard them complain. We've seen them get teed up in different spots. But the meltdown there over a play that still doesn't make sense to me. We asked a bunch of times about what they were mad about. I thought because of the fact that they were so upset that they gave Chicago a timeout prior to that jump ball. And then, tees are flying, everyone's pissed. And then they throw up a jump ball. And I'm like, what happened? What were they mad about?
I think what they wanted was for Jalen to be able to do the jump ball instead of Peyton.
Jalen.
Really?
That was the
Yeah,
whole.
but
That was
Jalen really worth it all
Jalen
this?
got that.
No,
Jalen
That makes
got
sense in retrospect.
Jalen got his hand on it first, and that's what they were arguing.
Yeah, and obviously Joe expressed regret there over what he did, that he can't do that. And it
Because
obviously
he almost killed
went
the
to a
guy.
Spiral, yeah.
Yeah.
Just a crazy situation. And this is a Bulls team that nearly beat them last month. They're going to play them again Saturday. And, not to take it too far, but we've talked about it after a couple games now, John. Teams that can spread them out, teams that can make them play smaller, teams that can use speed against them. It continues to challenge them more and more. And these aren't great teams that are hurting them with it for stretches. And obviously for the entire game tonight in Chicago's case, we talked about with Washington on Sunday, probably the worst team in the league, but a faster, younger, smaller team that can spread you out and get by your perimeter defenders. This was a disastrous game defensively, and Joe admitted as much, that they let go of the rope late on that end. Again, it's one game, but you've seen a couple different situations this year. Memphis, Washington in a couple spots. You can probably think of more where teams with speed, teams with backcourts that can hurt you. I mean, it forced the Celtics to go to Springer tonight, which isn't a guy you ever see out there. And they're trying to figure out a way to make that 3-guard lineup work. We've talked about it, John. It hasn't worked for much of this year. And Hauser down again. We've said it a million times. When he's down, it puts them in a bind rotation-wise.
So I think, honestly, at the end of the day, and I want Noah's take here, everything that we saw from the game is something that can easily be written off as a one-off. Bad shooting night, lost their composure, defensive lapses, let their emotions get the best of them, all of those things. And even in almost every instance where things like that or that combination of things has happened to this team over time, they've bounced back and won like 7 straight or whatever it is. So it's usually not a thing where you have to worry that like, oh, there's carryover here. I know, Bobby, you mentioned the teams that'll spread them out and that might win those 3-point battles against them, which Chicago came close to doing once before and obviously did tonight. That's a matchup issue, and that's going to be what it's going to be. But the one thing that does have legs going forward is what a problem they have if Hauser's injury is going to continue to linger, and figuring out what they're going to do there, because wing depth is an issue even with Hauser being healthy. If he's not there, I mean, Joe's just we're back into that, like, let's try Banton, let's try this guy, let's try this
double
guy,
big,
let's try Stevens,
wing,
let's try
3
double
guards.
big, let's try 3 guards, and without a real natural fit there. So
Try Springer.
And so Springer, I don't mind
Noah
trying it, but I just don't like trying it with Springer. But I mean, they've tried Jordan Walsh, they tried Drew Peterson, and now it's kind of, hey, well, why not? Let's give him some reps. Joe talked about that he's fast, and he thought athletically he could keep up with the Bulls, and that was one of the reasons why. But we just continue to just not see anything redeeming out of his game that would allow him to play minutes like on a regular basis. And again, you play once in however long it's been, it's really hard to make an impact. But like, I'll put it to you, Noah, because you like some things about Springer and you think that there's something there. Can he make something in minutes if they do start to give some to him? Or was this just a let's try it for this one game and let's move on?
My interpretation of these minutes is that I think he was one of the few guys on the roster that just hadn't had an opportunity at this year. And Joe's whole thing is, stay ready and you never know when your name's going to be called. But at a certain point, your name has to be called once. And I think tonight was his night. And I don't think that he was terrible, but he also didn't make a strong case that he deserves minutes or that he's going to be impactful in the rotation. Offensively, he was kind of a nothing. And I don't know that I can see a clear role for what he's going to be offensively at any point on this team. So is he going to be able to do what he did tonight a couple more times this season if he doesn't get traded? Maybe, but ultimately, like, that doesn't solve the question that Bobby posed, which I do think is one of the most important questions about this team right now. And that's like, what would you do if Sam Hauser's out? And he really, off the bench, he has the most important, outside of Al Horford, who I don't even know if I've used a bench player, but he really played a very consistent rotation minutes throughout the entire playoffs last year, and was very durable. And obviously this season he's been dealing with things. So I think that's my one concern or takeaway from this game is that, it really does highlight how important he is. And clearly nobody has stuck in that spot. Jordan had his opportunities early on. Drew Peterson wasn't even here tonight. Maybe they go to him if he's here, but he wasn't here. So, you maybe at a certain point you give him another look, because I do think that they liked what they saw of him, and I can see him shifting to fit this team more so than Jaden at this point.
I'm surprised he's continued to go back to Maine and not be here when he showed as much as he did in those couple games. Then I know you want to get a look at other guys and you still believe in Walsh and want to try that out, but in contrast to Springer and Tillman and Walsh, who have all shown such enormous hesitancy to get involved offensively, you still remember that Cleveland game where he comes right onto the court, takes a three right away. He's super involved. He can handle. He can play off ball. And it looks so natural, and he's in such a similar role to Hauser that you would think whenever Hauser's out, just put Peterson right into that spot. And maybe it was a bit of a surprise or a late thing. I don't even know where Maine is right now. But that is probably going to have to be their answer there, or they're going to have to go out and make a move. And when you start to stack up the amount of guys, John, that can't play right now deep off that bench, whether it's Shireman because of his inexperience, Tillman because he won't shoot three or, just hesitates too much from three, Springer now, who they clearly don't have a ton of trust in. Like, you're starting to rattle off a lot of names. Walsh hasn't taken a huge advantage of his opportunity. So we're getting to the point now where I do think, despite their limited flexibility and their inevitably tight rotation when they're in the playoffs, they're going to have to scan the league for some moves. And I don't know who that's going to be, but a veteran wing, a guy who can shoot at a capable level and at least be guarded or respected by defenses feels due here, just because this Hauser back injury, I'd have to imagine months into the season that just isn't going away.
Yeah, it's definitely something of that nature where it feels almost chronic, very recurring. He has been very tight-lipped about it whenever we've asked him. It's clearly bothering him, and it's up and down. And we haven't seen him drop the thing that he has on the lower back end of the bench. He's had it every single game this year. So I do have concern about that, just thinking long-term. We've talked about people's tendonitis and Tatum's knee and Drew's knee. Those injuries have not stuck out to me as anything that we should be thinking about long-term, and this does feel different.
Facts, my dog.
Oh, sorry. I thought there was more coming, Noah. So let's move the conversation to the place that small pea brains like me and Jimmy will take it to. It's
nice.
It's the Lonnie Walker conversation all over again, or someone like him who can come in and potentially give you those minutes. I know you guys think Lonnie Walker is just main fodder, but what else are you doing here at this point? Where are you finding a professional basketball player to come in and fill those Hauser minutes? And it's not going to be in a trade. Like, it's going to be really hard to find somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to go there, but it's hard to push back against you at all, John, given what we're seeing right now. And
Oh boy.
Pritchard's, I mean,
Hold
think
on.
of what they'd have off the bench if Pritchard wasn't having a
Hold on, John. I have it right here.
borderline all-star season. Now,
There
I
it
don't know
is.
if
This
I don't
looks
know if it's
just
Walker,
like the
but
time.
when you do start to think about the kind of player they need off the bench, he does fit that mold.
He's been playing well. I've been following closely his game logs. He's been quite developing a big following over there in Lithuania. I mean, the reality is I don't think you're going to find somebody that does what Sam does. This is why he was so important to lock down long term and why he got a pretty hefty contract ultimately. Like, as simple as his game is, I don't think you're going to find that in Lonnie Walker.
He's one of the best shooters in the league. Yeah,
and he's just so solid all around. He's a solid rebounder, good decision maker, like everything. So I'm
Easy,
pro.
Noah. It's not Lonnie versus Sam here. That's not what we're talking about.
It's Lonnie versus replacement level player
Right.
is really what it comes
I mean,
down to.
I like Lonnie. Like, I think we wanted him on.
No,
but I think the reality is that I don't know that he solves this team's problems. Like, that's not. And again, I don't want to overblow this. I don't want to. They were going to win without Sam. This type of game, like, this is not the reason that they lost. But I understand why the conversation comes here. But I still don't think that Lonnie Walker is necessarily the solution.
Well, it goes back to Banton too, right? Because we've had that conversation how they let him go. Not that he'd be filling the role we're talking about right now, but it was a good player who you gave up to buy into Springer's potential here. We obviously have plenty of reporting now at this point that they tried to move off Springer before the season to make the Walker thing work and weren't successful with that. So it might just be a small misstep that the front office made right there. And, if they're healthy,
money too, Bobby. It was money.
Yeah, and you get to a point money-wise where you can't fill a 15th spot at that point. But, a guy who's making $4 million in the last year of his rookie deal who doesn't look like he can play rotation minutes, that's why Philadelphia traded him for nothing, just to get off the money there. And now you're on that money and apparently not able to move it here. So, is Walker something you could circle back on later in the year, or is that bridge burned, you think?
I don't think it's burned. I mean, the whole idea of him going to Europe was that he's able to opt out of that contract. I mean, that was the whole framing around that. And I think there's probably plenty of teams around the league that have been monitoring his situation and many other guys' situations, whether it's in the G League or overseas. I mean, I'd love to see him back here. I think that would be a lot of fun. And obviously, like, we enjoyed covering him in training camp. We only heard positive things. I thought he looked good in preseason. He's looked good overseas. But the reality is he's not exactly the player that we're talking about right now, but it might be as good as you can get. I don't know. I haven't scoured the full trade market out there to see what's really.
You guys don't think he'll be upset that you ran him out of town?
It's possible. I mean, his Twitter log has been very
because
vengeful.
because also all these big NBA engagement accounts are literally monitoring the box scores until he has a bad game, and then when he has a bad game, they post his stat
He had
line.
the bad one the first game.
Right, the first, but then he's had so many good games, and then they're all crickets. So I understand his frustration because the news cycle is literally dominated by like NBA Central and Legion Hoops, and they have not been giving him a fair shake at how things have been going. So
I'll say this in the meantime too. Lean on Peterson in that spot and see if he can run with that role. And he's obviously a guy who, when the time comes, you could convert to a standard contract and continue to push into that role. Shireman, I do want to see him at some point. I feel like we haven't seen him in this kind of situation, just throwing him into those minutes and seeing what you get from him. Obviously, they're at this point deciding that he needs an extended stretch in Maine and is going to benefit from playing consistently up there rather than sitting on the bench here. But if Hauser's going to miss any amount of time here, I do think those are the two guys you have to look at, because the non-shooters or the guys who struggle to shoot just can't play the offense the way that they want to over an extended stretch. And I'll credit the Missoula for leaning on him for 9 minutes in that first half stint, going back to him in the second half and just trying it again. I've liked the level, and I know you've mentioned it, John, too, at which Joe has experimented to begin this year.
Yeah,
But at some point, you do want to commit to one guy and allow him to step into and grow comfortable in that rotation.
But you can't.
Spot. Right now, it looks like Peterson.
You can't. You probably by default. But that's fine.
So you'd circle back on Lonnie, John.
Certainly. But what's funny is like the trio they had last year where you were struggling to figure out who would play between Brissett, Banton, and Stevens.
Brissett's still out there.
And Stevens too.
Yeah.
And I'd honestly I'd consider it, because you got two of those three that are just kind of hanging there with some familiarity with the organization. So
Well,
if you're not gonna find a way to move off of Springer and create that space and bring in somebody like Walker, who kind of maybe that's what you intended on doing when you brought him in the first place, maybe that's something. But that's not. You're right, Bobby. It's not solving problems. It's just plugging a hole, if you absolutely need it. It's just right now they have no one if Hauser is really going to be banged up there, and you might just need a warm body.
Yeah, but you might run into the situation you saw with Springer tonight where there's some unfamiliarity, there's some miscommunications. I mean, the defense tonight was probably about as bad as you've seen it all year. And not that I don't think his intensity was there, or that he didn't make some good plays, but there were some miscommunication, some blown switches, and just some overall passiveness defensively that allowed the Bulls to get downhill a ton, especially in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I honestly thought that most of the defensive missteps really didn't have much to do with him. I went back a couple of times because I was like, was that Springer? And I actually don't think. I think he happened to just play.
A lot of it was
today.
Jalen.
A lot of it was Jalen. Yeah.
Yeah, Jalen and
Jalen Brown.
Yeah.
Not Jalen.
Not Jaden.
Oh, yes,
Jalen, not Jaden. Correct.
Jimmy, you were going to say something.
I was
Jimmy,
going to say this feels more.
Yeah,
I would just say it feels more like a regular season problem than a playoff problem, because I think we all kind of agree that the minutes are going to tick up and they're going to the rotation's going to be smaller. And again, Hauser was huge for them at points in the playoffs. I get his worth, but I don't think we're really concerned about bringing on another player as much as we are to show a warm body to get through the regular season than we are once the playoffs come around, when we're going to want to have Tatum in the game regardless of how many minutes, and Brown, and those are the guys, and White. And I have a bigger concern with a guy like Drew Holiday than I do with Hauser, because Holiday's not hurt for all we know, and he's just not the same guy right now. And I don't want to completely change the subject, but I would be more concerned with somebody who's supposed to play 30 plus minutes a game, especially in the playoffs, than I would be, a Springer type level fill-in guy.
Yeah, it's definitely something you're keeping an eye on. I think I've noticed him trying to go inside more, trying to take advantage of some mismatches in the post, get some looks closer to the basket, and I think that's smart. But you also want him to maintain the confidence in the three and get those up in droves and draw closer where he was last year. I think you mentioned, he's not going to be 42, 43% like he was a year ago, but I do have confidence in him, again, drawing shooters out to the perimeter, being a threat, and not being that guy in the Memphis game who you can just ignore. And we haven't seen that yet since.
Yeah, no, but I think Jimmy makes a good point. That's kind of what I was thinking when we were talking about this Lonnie Walker discussion, is that ultimately none of these guys are going to be playoff contributors, whether it's Brissett or Lamar Stevens or any of it. Lonnie Walker, I don't think either. So it is a regular season question, and I do think they have enough on this roster to not have to worry about these kinds of losses ultimately happening too often. And honestly, this loss shouldn't have happened even without Sam. This was honestly, it was one of the more disappointing Celtics games that I've seen in person. Just the way that they fell apart down the stretch there was very out of character. And the fact that the shooting led to such defensive lapses by guys that are so reliably good defenders and so reliably units that are very familiar with one another. So I think you kind of just have to chalk this one up to that. And certainly the Hauser thing is lingering. And then Drew, I don't know. I mean, early on, I was kind of thinking we were overreacting a little bit because it was kind of early. And as we're getting deeper into the season, it is feeling a little bit like he's not exactly the same player that we, was so pivotal to that championship last season. That being said, I do feel like if we go back to this time last year, I felt kind of similarly about him to how I feel about him right now. So I don't know. I'd have to look at his body of work and his career. And does he normally have these kinds of slow starts? I'm really not sure. But he's certainly like something that you're watching night in and night out. And he's just not the same guy that he was 5 or 6 months ago, and there's not a clear explanation for it.
The biggest difference is simply the 3-pointers not falling. I mean, because above all else, but I know defensively, I know people have pointed out where it looks like he might be half a step slower. With some people beating him off the dribble a little bit more than maybe had happened last year. But what's interesting is you didn't see it. You didn't see it in the Olympics over the summer, where he looked like he was like 3 different guys on defense flying all over the place. So that's what's so strange is it's not even year to year. It's like literally like 2 months ago, 2 months before the season started, he was like all world, Mr. Everything glue guy for that Olympic team. So I don't fully get it, but it's off. And the 3-pointer cratering, his 3-point percentage falling all the way into the 30s, right? Like low 30s is an issue. You're now 30 games into the 27 games into the season. He's shooting 33%.
Yeah, and beyond that, I make a big deal out of a night like tonight, a night like Memphis, because of the fact that it puts on paper, it shows teams the path to beating Boston. I think it's playing smaller. I think it's chasing their 3-point total, like you saw with Chicago tonight. Offensive rebounding, I think that can hurt the Celtics at times when they do have to go smaller. So there's a certain type of team that does have that offensively potent center, a player that can get a lot of threes up off the dribble like Levine did in this game, multiple ball handlers who can spread you out and keep the ball moving. There were some really impressive sets from Chicago in this one, and they're not going to be a team that you see down the line, especially if they break this thing up here. But one thing I thought about as I watched this game, John, and the team that we're all putting in the rear view a little bit there is Denver, but there is that discussion: do they go and add a Levine? He looked impressive in this one. He looked rejuvenated. He looked like a guy that can threaten you with pull-up shots. And you add him to that mix in Denver there, and I know he has his defensive liabilities, and the injuries are always a concern with him. But watching this game tonight made me love that fit out there, especially if Jamal Murray's limited or misses time. So I'm intrigued to see if that ends up being a move they end up making.
You know me, I've always been a Levine guy. So he was outstanding tonight. I like his game. I think he does a lot for you. I think he gets a lot of shit maybe that's not entirely due.
Not this year.
The injuries.
Yeah, certainly. But
it was kind of funny being here in pregame. Billy Donovan all but said like all of the questions that he was asked were about like, kind of you guys need to lose games because of your draft pick, and what is it like to coach a team where you're kind of supposed to lose games? And he was talking about how obviously they're not going to tank and that he doesn't believe in that, but the thing that they actually came out of here with a win, and obviously players are never going to tank. That's just not the way players are, but they certainly had some guys that are raising their trade value if that's the direction that this team is heading in.
Yeah, we were shocked. We did our all-star team last podcast, and it was like, whoa, what's Vucevic doing this year? We couldn't believe what he was doing to start this year. So it is kind of surprising where they're at, given the performances we saw from them across the board here. And again, if Pritchard doesn't go volcanic in that Chicago game, they lose that game too. So it's going to be interesting on Saturday how they respond to the things the Bulls did, how they adjust, whether Hauser's back. I love the fact that they're playing this team again in short order.
Yeah, Vucevic's numbers are frigging
Guy's
obscene.
still doing it years later.
No, but the shooting numbers are just
it's insane.
Unreal this year. He's shooting almost like 50% from 3. So it is interesting. That's definitely raised the value there.
Is he been in the league for like 15 years? It feels like he's been in the league forever, and he's just still like an awesome player.
You got to punish this team's defense.
12.
Like, he's not a defender. Levine's not a defender. And the Celtics ended up settling too much here.
So again, here we go. So we'll close with this because I hate making every single game about math, and oftentimes it is, and it's really lazy and boring to just basically say, well, the threes fell and they won, and they didn't fall and they lost. But a lot of games do come down to that. Really, but the only thing you can analyze is, were they good threes? Were they earned threes? And Joe, in his, he says he loved their process and in the first half, and he thought that they were getting good looks, and I thought they were bad. I thought there was.
I think the times where they started to fall behind in the 3-point total, they started forcing some up. I remember when Tatum got up after the Bulls had just got a couple and hit a couple. I think there was a stretch where Pritchard just started launching them to begin the fourth quarter. I think it was. So I want, like Joe always says.
I think they were launching them all game. I really do. I think they were launching them all game.
And Joe always says he doesn't tell them to launch threes, but I do wonder if they're falling behind in that volume category that he prioritizes too much. Is it like, oh, we got to get a couple up here to keep up? Because that's what it feels like sometimes.
So I'll ask you this because it's come up a couple of different times now, and Joe's been asked about it, and Joe might be like public enemy number one in the NBA right now because he's the one that's taken this to the next level. Do you think it'll affect the Celtics thinking like everyone hates us because of all of the threes we shoot? Should I shoot this one or should I be doing something else? Like at what point does it start to creep in, even with them starting to think like we are shooting a shit ton of threes, aren't we? Like, and change their approach where it's not flowing in the way that it does when it's really working. Like you think they think about it at all? Like these are a lot of threes.
I don't think so. I mean, I think you think about them when you go, 8 for 40 or whatever because you lost the basketball game. But I don't think you're worried about the popularity discourse. I was kind of thinking that if you're like an NBA star and you're seeing all this discourse around the ratings, like, does that bother you? Do you feel some ownership in that? It doesn't seem like it, but that's a slightly different conversation. But I think with the 3-pointers, like they're just thinking about like tonight it didn't work. So maybe you're going back to the drawing board from like an X's and O's perspective. But I don't know that they're also not, like, I think it's a little overblown that the Celtics are the one reason why there's a 3-point revolution in the game right now. Like, they happen to really work off of it very well last season.
Yeah, but
and certainly they're leading the pack. But it's a league, it's a sport-wide thing. I mean, I'm covering the WNBA. Every single new coach that they're hiring is like a 3-point master, and that's their philosophy, and that's the way they're recruiting players and everything.
Yeah, they're just the poster children for it and also they've taken it to such an extreme. Where last year they led the league with 42 attempts and the next closest was 41. To jump from 42 to 51 is an insane jump. So yes, I mean, they are not just at the forefront of it, but they have changed the thinking of a lot of teams where it was always the math has always made sense, but the math was three is better than 2 at the percentage. We're used to shooting 3. Now it's simply, you got to get up more threes. So it's definitely changed a bit. Like Joe Mazzulla is really the first guy who's talked openly about we need more attempts. Like it's just about getting them up versus just making them at a good clip or taking good shots. He wants them to jack them all the time. He wants more and more and more threes. And that's definitely ticked it over. And you're right, Noah. You do wonder. It's like at a certain point and they're like, am I ruining the NBA with this 3 right now? Because it's not just the fans and whatever. Like, we have this clip. I'll play it here from LeBron the other day.
Something had to change. No, I did not. Okay. I was not part of the committee.
This is starting about the All-Star game, but it pivots.
Everyone has their own opinion. Yeah, I mean, it's different, in a sense. But I don't know. I don't really have we see when we get there. It's different. Obviously, anytime you make some type of change, it's going to be some buck back. I don't know. I mean, I have my ideas of what could possibly work.
That's kind of why, I'd love to
do that. I'm not going to do that.
But like coming out of it's so hard. Reaction.
We got to do something. Obviously, the last couple of years have not been a great All-Star game that Sunday night. But I mean, listen, it's a bigger conversation. It's not just the All-Star game. It's our game in general. It's a lot of fucking threes being shot. So it's a bigger conversation just the All-Star game. I can't do that today. Not in Sacramento. I love you guys, but you can't get you this conversation today. It's just a bigger conversation.
So LeBron's lucky that this didn't happen, 10 years ago. He might be out of the league by now. A guy can't hit it.
No, and he's shooting a lot of threes too.
He's not hitting.
I'll say this. I don't think the Celtics look at this and say, oh, are we causing issues? And Joe joked about it the other day, right? He was like, oh, let's mess up the game even more. Let's have a shorter shot clock. He was just having fun with the whole conversation because I'm sure he thinks it's ridiculous. But I think what they're contending with right now is more on the defensive side. Do we give up a lot of threes? Do we cut down, clamp down like we did last year, try to limit as few as possible? Because obviously you do that at the start of the year, and it's a layup line at the basket. So they've adjusted since Porzingis came back, gotten even more aggressive at taking away the basket, and now the threes are obviously going up in droves against them, and teams are hitting them too. So I think they're in a bind defensively, and it goes back to what Jalen Brunson said here on opening night before it got going. Teams are going to copy them. Look at the Bulls. They shot like 37 a game last year, and they're up to like 42, 43. So a lot of teams are starting to try to follow their lead or use it against them. And, you're in the same position that teams are against you. Threes are flying up. If you're behind in the volume in a game like this, what do? Do you try to match them? Do you give up more looks at the rim, trying to take that away? And I do think they're in this situation right now defensively where they're like, all right, what's the right balance here?
Yeah, and I think the reality is also they were near the top of the league, if not at the top for almost all of last season when it came to 3-point percentage, and they're just not anymore.
Down, yeah.
Yeah, they're closer.
And that's a league-wide trend too. The three attempts are up and the percentage is down.
But I mean, relative to other teams, last I checked, they were like, I think around 10th. I have to check the latest numbers, but they're not near the top of the league anymore. And obviously, a couple of guys can really sway that. Like Drew Holiday made a pretty considerable decline. Hauser's numbers have also gone down, but so it's not a catastrophe. But I actually have been curious if there's something bigger than that. Like, is the quality of attempts going down? Because they are going down in their percentages, and I think that was what made them so good last year.
After today, they're 15th. They're dead middle.
Wow.
They're 36.7%. So again, they're not. And again, the volume goes up, and the volume goes up naturally. I mean, for an individual, you always give deference to a volume shooter when his percentage is a little lower because they're taking more because of whatever reasons that they are, because the ball's in their hand late in the shot clock. They have to create their own. They're taking more step backs, blah, blah, blah. The Celtics are doing it across the board. So, yeah, the numbers are down, but they're still adhering to it. And it is what it is.
I think offensively,
you guys said it about the approach. This is what bugs me the most, and it actually works with both the All-Star conversation, which is a hot topic these days, and the three-point conversation. The reason the NBA is tinkering with the All-Star game is because you guys won't fucking play hard. And if you did, they wouldn't. And that's why. So they're trying to give it a juice. So the reason teams are shooting three-point shots at this level and this volume is because you're freaking letting them. Change even the Celtics are helping and getting in rotation against the Bulls. Stay freaking home. If you want a team to shoot fewer threes, will it so. You can do that. Live and die by other things. But teams aren't changing their defensive approach right now, which is crazy to me. And I can't believe you play the Celtics and still get in this game where they put you in a blender and you're running around because you're helping and try. Just let Jason Tatum go to the basket and live with whatever happens. And if you get killed with layups, you get killed with layups. You're gonna lose the three-point game if you go down that road. So it makes no sense to me. Change the way you play. And again, I used a football analogy. If a defense is putting 9 guys in the box and you're complaining that you can't run, throw the ball. Don't keep running into a stacked box, or don't keep throwing into a defense with 8 defensive backs. Run the ball. Do the other thing. It's so bizarre to me that this is still a conversation. You could stop the threes if you wanted to stop the threes, but teams are still playing the same style of defense.
Yeah, and Indiana obviously tried to do that in the East Finals and ended up giving 30 a game to Tatum going downhill, and
which is fine.
You're in a bind, yeah. And they obviously came
and famously that was the most difficult series for Boston. So
easily the most difficult. It's been and then Dallas does the opposite, and it's a friggin' joke, that series. So again,
right, yeah. No, it's a fair point. You have to adjust as team. Forget the league, forget the rules, the goofy ideas. You have to adjust as a league to what teams are doing, and you can take it away. There are options there, but the basket can be as dangerous as the threes too if you're going to give that up, especially with Porzingis back in the mix here. And I actually like what he's bringing them on that end so far.
I will say, a couple weeks ago we were talking about how their rim protection was terrible because they were actually prioritizing defending the three better. And since Porzingis has returned, they've kind of moved back towards what we're more used to, which is, gambling on guys not getting hot. And I think it's easy to when you lose, it's always the other one sounds better. But I actually remember like early on, Joe kind of saying like we're kind of swapping what we did before, and I think that had its advantages and disadvantages. But then there were nights where why are you getting cooked by Jakob Poeltl? So I don't know. I think there's advantages to both approaches. Certainly, if you're going against Boston, it's my biggest mystery is why teams have guarded Boston the way that they have. It really drives me crazy because I know these people are smart basketball people. They're like renowned NBA coaches, and I've never understood why you're doubling Tatum and giving Derek White an open three. So maybe it's going to stop, but
it is, but it's a change. You're used to doing it. You see a guy drive, and your instinct is to just jump out and help. And like, that's just what people do. I think it's like ingrained, whether it's the coaches or whatever. You might tell the players, but that's just what they do. It really is almost, you're going to have to sit people down and say, we don't do this anymore. It took Joe how long to get the Celtics to understand that he wanted them to shoot more threes? A solid year and a half, guys, you're not getting it. This is what I want. So this is institutional thinking, and just, this is how teams are used to playing. They have to just adapt.
And teams aren't playing the Celtics every night.
It's as simple as that. As the rest of the league does it, you're just going to have to decide and pick your poison. What am I going to do? And really, it's stay home and play it straight up as best you can. Switch and stay home. Don't overhelp. Don't get caught. Don't get in rotation. Give up fewer threes and don't lose the math battle. And then just play it. And you might still lose, but you're definitely, against a team like the Celtics, you're definitely losing. And look, against a team that's not the Celtics, against the old Celtics, with Marcus Smart out on the court and other people who weren't hitting it at a good clip, you did want to concede those, but you're conceding them to certain people, So exactly that. Like, you decide what you want to have happen. Live with contested shots in the paint. Live with Drew Holiday threes because he's not shooting them well right now. Whatever that is, like, that's your choice. But what Noah said is insane to me. Like, you're doubling Tatum to leave White open. It's just suicide.
No, yeah. And it's interesting to see the Celtics going through it themselves now defensively against certain
They
teams.
did it today too.
Yeah.
So anyway, we've covered this a bit. The three-point conversation is not going anywhere, but the Celtics do have another crack at the Bulls, which is great. I love these little mini 2-game series where you're playing teams back-to-back, because we'll see how much carryover there is into the next game, and we will be back with another Garden Report post-game show. And we're going to stick it out all the way through the holidays, and we're going to do something on Christmas because that's what we do. So make sure you keep it here with the CLNS Media Garden Report post-game show throughout the holiday season. Jimmy Toscano at home, Noah and Bobby holding things down at the Garden. Sherrod Blakely, he'll be back on Saturday, so we could have a full house then. We'll see you guys later. Thank you for hanging out tonight.
No one's sneaking a vegan brownie by me, I'll tell you that.
Okay, you know what, John? We're going to do it.
You have to feel that way too, Bobby.
I have to feel that way?
Let's
Slide Al over and make Luke your first center.
Bobby, we gave you Luke hour early. We're not going to end this on a damn conversation about Luke